Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Ilona, and this is your favorite host from Ilona TV. And as we say in Ilona TV, if you come once, you are a guest. If you come a second time, you are a friend. If you come a third time, you are a family. And today I have a privilege to host a family member of Ilona TV and my own, the mayor of the Brooklyn Park. Please welcome here. You're like a family to us already. We all know you, our crew, our cast know you. They absolutely adore what you do. They are your vision, your mission, your purpose, and we are thrilled to have you here. And we have also some kind of vision and agenda to why we have you over here that we will introduce to our viewers later. But would you please share who you are again and who is the mayor?
That's actually a difficult one to answer, but I can say that I'm, Mayor Hollis Winston in the wonderful city of Brooklyn Park. Way I look at myself is, child of God, and then I have three beautiful children, a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 9-year-old, and then I have my wonderful wife, Latrice Winston, my wonderful parents, and then of course, just a good circle of close friends. So that's how I see myself.
I am so glad that you unapologetically called yourself by your title, Son, Child of God. This is not even rare. This is even a taboo for people even introduce themselves as such. So for you to say that, being bold and courageous for what you stand for, it's very admirable. I used to hide my identity, and now on my social media, I put God's masterpiece. Where all the pieces, all the brokenness, all the pain, God weighed it as a God's masterpiece and such. So Mayor, Mr. Mayor, so we have invited you here because you're running for the second term.
Right.
I know you have accomplished so much. You have gained so much experience, good and bad. You've learned from it as well. So please let me know, what was this first term looked like for you?
The first term was a whirlwind. I think, coming in, there's 6 other people on the council. So I always make it clear that my vote is equal to their vote. I just represent the whole city. They tend to, they represent a district, but we all come together to make the best decisions for the city. And I think for many of us, it was a learning experience. I think when I came in, it was very much around public safety. It was about creating some economic development within the city, and then youth programming. And I think, I feel that, I've executed on a great deal of that. I think, some of the learnings that come out of that is just communicating to people more what has happened, right? But it was a learning experience in terms of bringing people together. Brooklyn Park we're very excited in terms of or appreciative in terms of how diverse Brooklyn Park is. I think 25% of our community is born outside of the United States, 65% people of color. Within the white population, there's a ton of diversity as well, economic, and just ethnicity as well. So I think when you have that vibrant tapestry, not everyone sees eye to eye. And so I think one of the things that I've had to learn is, how do you paint a vision that everyone can get on board with? And so that's been something that I've been learning as I go, while I execute against those different goals that we set out for.
Yeah, as a grateful resident of Brooklyn Park, that was my first city to establish myself in as I moved to Minnesota myself with the company that moved me. I found I can echo to what you said. I did feel that I was included. I did feel that I had a voice in here. I did feel very safe in this city, in my community. And also, you have developed so much for the youth, because my kids were involved in so many activities around here as well. And diversity that you are bringing in here did make me feel, okay, you know what? It doesn't matter color, economic development, or economic level of the people. We can still be friendly, we can still be as a part of the family. Right. And we don't have to maybe agree with each other or like each other, but we have to love each other.
Right, I agree. And I mean, that comes natural a little bit. My dad became a VP, so he was corporate America. My mother did well in corporate America, but my grandfather on my mother's side started out as a sharecropper. Now he worked his way up to a foreman at a factory, soap factory. and then he had his own business along with my grandmother. But you know, all of that diversity, so much of it is represented in my family for me to get here. So who am I to judge in terms of when people come to the table,
Yes.
right? And so I think a lot of the council, in fact, within our city, approaches our city that way, to say, how do we bring this tapestry together so everybody feels welcome? But also, you know, it's very much about creating economic opportunities for people, and we're still in the process of doing that because we're in many ways fighting the way people see Brooklyn Park. We're fighting some long-standing prejudices, not just to Brooklyn Park, but towards people of color. And so I think as we push back against that and we begin to create an economic engine, you'll start to see these opportunities speed up for people.
You know, as a person, you know, with such a caliber, with such a responsibility as you, as being the mayor of the city, we don't just wear many hats. We also wear masks. What kind of mask do you have to wear in front of the public to hide who you are?
You know, I think sometimes people think I'm too honest, actually. You know, I'm very comfortable in my own skin.
Okay.
I think there's a tendency for people not to want, they don't want me to necessarily talk about, you know, I'm proud that my family, African American, came out the South, moved to Chicago, you know, from sharecropper to VP in a couple generations. So I sometimes dial that back so that people can get past that. I can just focus on the task at hand. But I tend to try as much as possible to be who I am, right? I think I've had to learn in some ways not to be as blunt as comes natural to me. Sometimes I want to just say, and some of that's my family, some of that's coming out of Illinois, but I just want to say, here's the fact. And I feel like culturally that doesn't always line up with where Minnesota is at. So I think that's one thing that I've had to learn, is to say, okay, we can't always be as blunt. Maybe we got to walk people there a little bit more. So that's something that I've had to work with.
Yeah. Since last time we met with you, Mayor, there's a lot of events that happen globally. How can you, what is your insights, especially with the recent one, a stabbing of the Ukrainian woman on a subway, and also like a death of the Charles Kirk. So how do you see yourself in there? So what's going on?
Well, you know, there's America has been a country that has been mired in violence for quite some time. Even the assassination of, you know, Martin Luther King, and then in Arkansas, you know, little girls, where the churches were bombed and girls were killed, right? So I think it, and what I would say to this is that you have to parse it out. So some of this is political violence, in that people are trying to, both sides of the aisles are trying to instill their values on other people against their will. And I think that's a no-no, right? I think that as a community, we have to say, look, we're going to be many voices. We're going to disagree. And I think some of it is mental health. So I think from what I'm understanding, the stabbing of the Ukrainian woman, right? And I've had people in my family that were victims, and there was, you know, one race on another race, and right? I think some of that's mental health, and that some of that is just whatever country you go to, there are people that are just going to act out of turn. They're wrong, mentally ill, unhealthy, evil, however you want to put it, right? But I think the other thing that I'm concerned about is just this political violence. And I think with the political violence, we as a community have to realize that discourse is fine, right? But real discourse is fine. It has to be real debates. You agree with me, I disagree with you, or you agree, you know, whatever, however it works, there's got to be a real discourse where we're able to exchange ideas. But there also has to be an understanding that that has to be based in facts. And so right now we live in an age of propaganda, right? And you know what I mean? We live in an age of propaganda where people will go on a college campus and they'll tape something, and both sides are doing it. And then they'll take a clip that makes their argument seem strong, but they're cutting that clip. And this is both sides of the aisle, right? They're cutting that clip so that it ends there, but you don't get to see a legitimate counter argument. Now there are bad arguments on both sides, right? But what's happening is that they're taking maybe the people who make the worst arguments, right? And then they're putting up against their best argument. And that doesn't create a society that has the best arguments in front of them to be able to pick and choose what's best, and to be able to understand that there's really one side, right? And I said that earlier when I said God's children. There's one side in terms of what's right, in terms of how we really move forward and try to help people. Well, when you do this propaganda, people don't always get to see the different sides so they can get at the truth. And I think that's That's a real concern that I'm seeing in the country, is that people aren't seeing these different sides and why people are coming from different angles.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned bluntly mentioned the word propaganda, because it's absolutely truth. Media does have its own agenda.
Yes.
It always has been, and always division. It's always sensation. It's always scandals. This is how they're making their crowds and everything that they have agenda-wise. So, what would you recommend people or advise people to do so they will be able to have a global perspective, maybe proper, positive, objective before they can make their judgments?
I'd say listen to both sides, right? I've never hid that I'm a moderate Democrat, right?
Yes.
Some people don't even think those exist anymore, but they do. But I also, within Facebook, within social media, I tap into conservative websites. I tap into conservative groups. I want to hear those particular arguments. You know, there are some things on the economic side that I say, well, that actually does make sense, or this particular approach makes sense. I think you have to, even if it makes you uncomfortable, you have to tap in and say, what is the other side saying?
Yes.
So once you know that, you can either craft an argument to push back against that, or sometimes you just say, it makes sense. And now I'm outside of this particular box that I was in because I've heard a different perspective. I think that as a country, we're going in a direction where people are saying, I'm in this lane, and that is the only lane that I'm gonna stay in. And then if you don't go outside of that lane and force yourself to see other viewpoints, that algorithm that Facebook puts in front of you, that the media puts in front of you, is just going to reinforce one side of the argument. And to me, that does not create a society that can come together or that even understands the humanity in one another. And that's what concerns me, is that there's that loss of humanity, because people create these straw man arguments or straw woman arguments, however you want to put it. They create these false arguments. But if you're not looking outside of that particular lane, you just say, well, that's the argument, and then you'll go with it when there's something that could really undercut that. So I think people have to force themselves to be uncomfortable and listen to the other side. Otherwise, you get families that are split. They don't want to talk to each other. People don't want to have these conversations. And I think it's incredibly necessary for us to talk across the aisle and understand one another.
And Mr. Mayor, each time you speak, and I follow you, and I've been into live events with you where you have presenting your presentation, your vision as well. You're a prolific speaker, and each time you speak, you never pick the side. You speak objectively, so beautifully, where it can tap in for any belief, any political belief or a way of use as well. So you come out as a humanitarian, you come out as a, I know that the word globalist is not, but the one that takes the global vision, and you don't divide people on the colors, on the political views or their economic levels, but you speak to them as equality, as equal people of the world, as God's children. And that's one of the things I have gained so much respect of you, because you really push your vision and involving every aspect, every ages, and every, diversifying all of it. That's why me following you and promoting you, it's an honor for us to do things like that for you. So, having said that, I wanted to know, what is the one regret that you have done as a mayor, maybe decision make wise or vision cast wise, hiring, firing employees, that you regret doing it, and what have you learned from it?
Yeah, I think the regret would be, the city has this big vision for biotech district, and the reason we're doubling down on this biotech district is, the best I can explain it is, and I'll try to get to this very quickly, there's a city, Bloomington, that's a little bit bigger than us. They have $5.5 billion of commercial property values. Brooklyn Park has $2 or $2.5 billion. That's a $3.5 or $3 billion gap. So when we talk about us needing something for youth, or we want to invest in our residents, in our police department, right? It disproportionately hits homeowners versus commercial businesses. So we're saying this biotech can help us close that gap so that everything is much more affordable for our city, which means it's affordable for our residents. I think one of the things that I've noticed in Brooklyn Park is that Brooklyn Park has been so underinvested in. And people have been given such humble options for quite some time. So people will look at the southwest suburbs, they'll look at Edina and Prairie, other places, and say, well, that's where they're going to create the doctors and the lawyers and engineers, and that's where the big funding is going to go. Bloomington is going to go over here. So I think when we rolled out the biotech, I think a lot of people said, well, that's just going to create more taxes, even though we're creating it to do something very different. And so my regret is not first telling people, no, Rochester didn't start out as Rochester. Rochester with Mayo Clinic, they made a concerted effort to get the state to invest in Mayo Clinic. Big money.
Yes.
Mall of America, Bloomington, they made a concerted effort. You in Brooklyn Park are just as smart. You deserve the same things. You did affordable housing. You invested in your community long before other cities did. You deserve those same opportunities. But instead of starting from there, I think I kind of rolled out the vision, and we as a council rolled out the vision. And I think I could have done a better job of explaining why that vision is so important to people, and then showing them, no, this is actually how it over time drops your taxes, and coming out with the graphs and the facts and the data. So I think that's my regret, is thinking that people were already see that, right? And I think a lot of people are starting to see it, but I think it would have been starting from a more humble place and saying, this is who you are, this is what you deserve, and this is how we're going to get you what you deserve. I think we just started with the vision. So it'd be explaining it better.
All right, so you would, I know you are going after the second term, and this is one of the biggest reasons that we have invited you here, so we can, we will advocate for you. We would endorse you with that second term, because it's not just you. You have your tribe behind you. Your wife is behind your vision. Your children are behind your vision. You're man of God. You're a family man, and that's what we want to see. You, one of your vision that I absolutely loved when you cast out is to bring the fathers back into the community. So raise the fathers, so they will be the good members of the society as well, and teach them, guide them, guard them, support them to be a man in this city, which unfortunately we're lacking of. So that's one of the things that I absolutely love, despite of the vision that you have for our Brooklyn Park. I think this was one of my favorite one by far, since I've never seen politician mention anywhere closer to that, tapping into the families. So could you please elaborate that, and also cast out your vision for your second term?
Yeah, so I would, I'd be remiss in saying the reason I lean on family so much is that, my great-grandfathers were involved, right? My grandfather, my father, now me. So I've been blessed to have just a number of fathers that came up through the lineage, and so they kind of taught me how to approach things. That doesn't mean I don't have quite a bit of room for improvement, but I've been blessed to have a family behind me that has supported me in what I'm doing. And then I've had role models to help me with that. And I think one of the things that's incredibly important is, in that I think one side says they're focused on family, another side doesn't necessarily focus on it as much, but I don't think either one of them really are focusing on the integrity of the American family, that structure. And for me, right, it's much easier to have a strong family if you're surrounded by economic opportunity and you're safe. So as a city, and this goes into what I plan on doing that second term, right, is you have to have safe public safety, and we're doing that in a number of ways. Our police department's fully funded. We have alternative response teams, so if something bad happens, if a mother's arguing with the daughter, instead of the police coming, a social worker and some folks can come out, and police can support them, but they de-escalate. That family's not in the system. I think a third thing that we're going to be turning to is domestic violence, right? So it is every child, everybody should feel safe within their own home. And when we look at the data, we see that a lot of the violent crime we deal with is actually domestic violence. So as we push down other crime, the domestic violence becomes clearer and clearer to us. And I don't think a lot of people have solutions on terms of how to deal that, but I think you have to at least put out a goal to deal with it. So I think for me, that public safety is going to be important so that people have a safe household to grow up in. Then on the other side, that economic development. I tell people Brooklyn Park is open for business, right? We want to bring businesses here. So if I like to use maybe families from, kind of where I grew up. So I had family on the south side that struggled. I had family on the south side of Chicago that did well. There are some folks who came out of slavery poor, moved up north to the south side, struggled on the south side. Then they moved to the north side of Minneapolis, they struggled there. Then they moved to Brooklyn Park, and they struggled in Brooklyn Park. And so what I'm saying, what we're saying as a council is, let's break that chain, right? So that if the kid goes and gets a 2-year associate's degree, they get an $80,000 job in the biotech job. Maybe they meet their wife there. She's making 90K or 80K. Now they got 160, 170K family. It is much easier to come together as a family when you're not so stressed about bills all the time.
Yes.
You can take the kids on vacation, you can get the clothes you need. So for me, it's creating that ecosystem that helps protect the integrity of the family. So when I look at politics is not about, contrary to what people may think about me because I have a certain type of personality, it's not about power. It's really about how do I create a family, how do I create a structure where families can do well and stick together. And then they have their extended families and they can help their extended families and they can grow and be healthy, and you have the ecosystem of people that looks after one another. So that's my ultimate goal when I run for this second term, is to continue that work.
That is absolutely beautiful and very blunt, like you said, vision to cast out, because you have to come out with this kind of responsibility too, because it's a big responsibility and big job. And I'm just curious about what qualities the person should possess and have to be in politics.
That's a difficult one. I think you need a mix of people, right? But I think, if you could only have one type, I think they need to be grounded, whether it's in faith, whether it's in family. I prefer both. They should be grounded, but they should also have vision. And I know people don't always like this word empathy, but they need to have an understanding of what it means to struggle or to hurt or to be scared or to fear something. And maybe you've always been the alpha male or alpha woman and you haven't experienced that, but you should have an imagination enough to at least envision, right? What does it feel like to feel those things? Because if you feel how a lot of people feel, then you can start making policy that says, okay, this is how I get people up to a position of strength so that they can have the family and have the things they want. But you have to be able to understand where people are coming from, and then you have to have the vision to say, how do I make that happen? And I think you have to have a core, because what we see with a lot of politicians, and I'll say this on both sides of the aisle, you're seeing a lot of performative actions right now. This event happens, so now we're going to roll this thing out. We don't really believe in that thing. We don't think that thing is going to work. We're going to roll it out so people think we're doing something, right? Versus saying, we were already working on that. This is the thing that's going to fix that. I'm going to stay the course, and I'm going to communicate that to people so people know it's tough, but this is what we have to do to get there. I think a lot of people don't have faith in their communicative skills to do that, and so they'll do the performative thing. And I think you got to have the heart and the internal fortitude to say, no, this is the course, and I'm going to communicate that. And if you want to get mad at me for that, that's fine. But I have the integrity to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's true. When I was coaching one of the person from the politics, and they were asking, Ilona, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with me? What's the qualities I add? Then I was investigating and reading some of the books from, the journalists from Russia and other places.
Oh, yeah.
And I was combining all of the qualities. What do politicians need to have? One of the biggest qualities. And all of them echoed that politicians should have a charisma.
That's true.
That's one of the qualities that no matter what he or she says, if they don't have a charisma in that, it will be really hard for people to follow or be remembered by. Whether good or bad, they will remember this charisma with that. So would you agree with that kind of statement?
I would agree, but I think charisma, so my father and mother both have charisma, but I think their charisma comes from their internal integrity.
Exactly.
So I think a lot of people who vacillate, they don't necessarily they think they have a belief system, but their belief system may be what their party tells them. It may be what media tells them. It may be what their community tells them. And there's a lot of issues that come out there, and I have my own perspective because I have my own value system. And so from that, whatever charisma I have really comes from my personality, and that's something I saw in my parents, that they said, this is what I believe, this is what I'm going to do, right? Michael Jordan was not always the nicest guy.
Yes.
But Michael Jordan said, hey, I'm a winner, I'm here to win, I'm going to do what I got to do to win.
Yep.
And so the media and other people, kids, saw that and they said, I want to be like that.
Yes,
And
confidence.
Confidence, right? And I think for me, you know, politics is different than, it's not just about winning, it's about this community. So for me, it's very much about honoring those values. And so whatever charisma I have comes from that internal belief system and what I want for families. And I think that could also be that some people think I'm charismatic. There's other people I rub the wrong way because they want me to make a certain decision.
Obviously.
And I say, well, I disagree with that, right?
Yes.
So it cuts both ways, but I think it comes from all of the greats. And I'm not putting myself in that category, but all the greats who have that charisma, there was something internal that they said, this is what I am.
Definitely, and it's not easy to stay strong, but it could not be also hard to stand in your values. And let me ask you, how, I mean, you had your values, you had your standards when you went and you know, ran for the mayor, you got the position, you got your house and everything. So was it easy for that position to break your standards in some way? And how did you fight that?
Well, I ran 3 times, and I think, you know, I could have probably got in the second time had I kowtowed a little bit more to what people want to hear. So coming in, I already had a reputation for having my own mind and my own approach. And I chose Brooklyn Park because I didn't want to be subject to, I respect Minneapolis, I respect St. Paul. I didn't want to be subject to those particular politics. So I ran in Brooklyn Park where I said, well, there's a different focus and a different approach in Brooklyn Park. So for me, I chose a place and I got here in such a way that I'm able to be myself. And I'm not going to get into it, but there's certain movements that people are trying to start. They ask me to come in and I say, hey, that's for you guys. I'm not going to have, I don't have an issue with it, but it's just not for me.
Yes.
But I also think that I'm results oriented. So if I say public safety crime has to go down, if I say we have to start creating jobs, then that focuses me on those things. And other stuff becomes noise. So for me, because I'm focused on those things and because I have this general vision, right, that allows me to stay the course and stay focused on things.
I'm just wondering and very curious to myself, you know, I know that not everything is, you know, great and beautiful and just like we think it should be. Just because we have authority and a position doesn't mean that people will follow and be yes sir people. So how do you confront those voices, those opinions that are actually very contradict to your vision?
I think some of that I just say, listen, here's the, you know, I've had people come at me. So here's an example that I've had to push back on. We spent $10 million on a youth facility. There's people that want me to spend $10 million more on basketball courts. And I'm saying, we don't have $10 million as a city. We can go to the state, and if we can get those $10 million from the state, we'll do it. And other people are saying, well, what if you don't get it from the state? I said, well, we'll have to look at other avenues. But I can't put that on the city. But part of that belief comes from the fact that there's these stereotypes that people create about African-American kids, right? Like the only way a black kid is going to do well is if you put a basketball in their hand.
I see.
That's not true. I'm 5'9". I wasn't the basketball player out there, right? I was more academic, even though I did play. I played baseball more so, right? So I think some of it is just when people don't see or don't agree with your vision, you have to say, well, this is my vision.
Yes.
And I believe that for the issue you're talking about, this is the best way to address that issue. And this is how I see it, and this is how I built my coalition to deal with it. So we're going to move in this direction. And then some people say, well, Mr. Mayor, that's wrong. But I say, well, you have to show me different data to change my perspective. But this is the way strategically that makes the most sense from what I'm seeing. And this is why I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I think for me, it's easy to respond to those people when I have that vision and then I have a strategy that connects that vision. If I was moving on what's popular, then it would be extremely difficult for me because I would be saying, someone would say, well, that's wrong. And I'd say, well, it's popular. And they'd say, yeah, but you don't have any data to back that. But because I have a vision backed by strategy, that's something I can do. And the other piece is It's not that I'm a contrarian, but I don't mind if people disagree with me. You can disagree with me, you can go out and you can badmouth me, you can have your own vision, but I wasn't put down here on this planet to be your friend. And I think people have to realize that. Like, I have a beautiful wife, you've met my wife, I have beautiful children, I'm enjoying my parents while they're here, and I've got a great circle of friends. I don't need you to like me for me to make the right decision. So I think in my own way, that's me, how I handle it, right? Is, well, I'm not here for you. I'm here to do this purpose that God put me here for. I'm going to do that, and here's the right way. And I think a lot of people struggle with that because they live in a world, as you said, propaganda. Well, if you don't do this, this is how we're going to badmouth you. Okay, well, I still have my family and my friends and God. So I'm okay at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people, and I get a lot of that from my parents, to be honest with you. And I don't know that a lot of people approach the world that way. I think for them, how they're perceived by their friends in greater society is everything. And to me, for my personality type, that would be torture. If I lived by the poles, that would be torture. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I always tell this to people. You're not a dollar. Not everybody would like you.
Right.
Right? So you expect that. And I actually, it used to bother me when people would like criticize me or would say something opposite of what I believe or mention something that I was doing. Now I love when people don't like what I say, what I post. That makes me know that I bother them enough. They're the ones actually became my loyal audience more than anybody else, and they're the ones that are watching me the most, and they're the ones that are transforming the most. So if they don't like you, it's actually a blessing, because you're doing something great that they are just want what you have and how you have it, right? And this is absolutely amazing. And let me ask you also the question about your if you pray, right? You're a man of God. What would you pray about Brooklyn Park?
You know, I guess I would. If I'm praying about Brooklyn Park, there's two different prayers, right? For Brooklyn Park, I would say I pray that God bless Brooklyn Park with peace, prosperity, and just self-understanding and patience, right? I think the peace and the prosperity explains itself. I think the self-understanding is that you got a city of 85, 90,000 people, so much diversity. We don't always understand where the Hmong person is coming from, who doesn't understand where African American is coming from, who doesn't understand where the Nigerian descent person coming from, right? And I think that self-understanding, if people understood that, hey man, everyone is coming here to just try to make good, and they want to get along, and secretly, most of us want our children to get along. If we are able to get back by some stereotypes. And then I think the patience, it's just the patience and understanding that we approach things from different angles, right? That would be my prayer for them. I think for the leadership at Brooklyn Park, it would be discernment. You know, God give us discernment, and then give us, and then when necessary, put the right words in our mouth. So when we get ready to say something stupid, enter us and just correct us before we say it, right? So that would be.
Amen to that for everyone.
Yeah, so that would be my general prayers there. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And I think I don't think that I have a conviction that prayer changes things, and that's one of the things that I find myself guilty not to pray enough. I pray a lot and just pray to God about things that I don't put too much power into prayer that I should have, because the prayer is the very powerful. And also, Mr. Mayor, I know that you are incorporating the faith into your life and through your life, and bring it also into your sphere, into our communities, into our families. And you partner with, not partner, but have a very good contacts and good relationship with the local churches. And one of them you'll be speaking very soon in one of the biggest church around here. So now, how do you see when you get elected second time? How do you see that partnership to grow, and what is your next agenda to incorporate faith-based facilities?
Yeah, I think
into family.
So I think that, I could actually do a better job with the churches, and that's on me. I think it's been such a whirlwind since I got into office, that I could do a better job reaching out and saying, how do we coordinate public service? And I've tried to do some of that. I think I just need to do a much better job. The difficulty is that, this separation of church and state. So a lot of this would be me doing stuff outside of my official position and bringing people, because I can't use staff to do that.
Yes.
So I have to find time outside of that. However, I think I would say in terms of just keeping our city cleaner, preventing homelessness, helping people who struggle, or helping to put together a larger coalition of maybe moderate churches that are saying, this is how we're going to advocate for economic prosperity for all families. Because I think there's a place for moderate churches to say, this is how we actually create value for people. I don't always see that within the political sphere. I think that would be something I'd be interested in doing within the second term, is putting that coalition together, and then helping us in terms of keeping the city clean, taking care of folks that are struggling. I think those are kind of the sweet spots for churches that really, if you're talking about Christian, right, that's really the path Christ was on.
Yes.
But I think if you're talking other faiths, they share that in common, where they're saying, hey, listen, we don't want to see people starving. We don't want to see people struggling.
Yes.
We want where we live to be clean. Cleanliness is next to godliness, right? So I think that would be how you could bring together a general faith coalition.
Yeah. What would be the first thing that you will address when you get the second term?
Well, that's a good one. I think because so much stuff is already running, I think for me it would be on the public safety side, saying, how do we double down on this domestic violence thing? I don't think anyone has really cracked that in the United States, if I'm honest with you.
Yes.
And there's a variety of factors, right? It's economic factors, stress factors, cultural factors. And so how do we begin to unwind that and track that and hold ourselves accountable for that, and not have any shame when we fail, but also raise ourselves up when we succeed? Because I think when you're looking at those stats, people, when they look at crime, they always think, oh, it's when someone gets assaulted, they're thinking it's an outsider. Many of the times, it's somebody within that household or somebody close to the family, right? So how do we begin to unwind that, where we change that culture and we're introducing economic factors where people are not feeling that level of stress where they're acting out? Everybody's responsible for their actions, don't get me wrong, but if I can create an environment where people aren't feeling that stress, I want the outcomes.
So, Mr. Mayor, how can we as a community and the public support you for the second term? Tell us, what do you want us to do?
Oh, I would say, of course, I always ask folks to vote for me. Vote. I don't have all the dates in front of me, but I would ask folks to vote. If they can support my campaign as volunteer or donation-wise, do that as well. But there's this other piece, because campaigns can get ugly. And I would say, come with positive, hopeful rhetoric, right? So come with a vision. Like if people are gonna debate this stuff online, come with a positive vision about what things should look like. Not always an attack here and an attack there, but come and actually debate the issue. What I found is that most people who come after me, they come after me because they don't have a vision.
Yes.
Or they have some economic self-interest that they really don't want to tell people, but I'm not giving them, so they're attacking me. Or the third piece is they want my particular position, but they don't have a vision, right? So then they're attacking rather than painting a vision of what it should look like. And I'm not going to give everything away to my opposition, but a vision is often much more than what they're leading with. And some of them, truth be told, are not capable of coming up with a vision, right? And sometimes that's just a gift. Like going to Martin Luther King and saying, if Martin Luther King came to the average person, he says, you don't have my vision, I think most people would say, well, you're Martin Luther King, you're special. Like I can't create that vision. I'm sorry, forgive me, right? So I'm not asking everybody to come with that vision, but I am saying, before you criticize, what positive are you actually seeing?
I agree.
What are you trying to paint And then is it better for you to attack this person, or is it better for you to just go on ahead and make that vision happen? So
yeah, I agree. So we're going to be very intentional
Yes.
to look for the people who are positive, mindful, not just criticizing, because it's so easy to find some flaws. Rather, it takes the big and higher person to find some positive things. So we are looking for the intentional, positive people who can, if you cannot cast a vision, at least support one. And if you cannot be the kind person, or if you cannot find the kindness or kind person in the world, how about you can become one? So Mr. Mayor, we want to wish you all the best. We're also going to add to support you, also to pray for you as well, to pray for you and for your family during this time. So we'll be able to it will go smooth, because we don't want another, it can be ugly, like you said. And we've seen it happen. So it's going to go smooth this time. We've learned a lot. You have a lot of experience, lots of things that you have learned. And is there anything that you want to add that we have not touched? So this is your camera right here, number 3. So please talk to it.
I know it's going to seem odd, but what I would say is there's a book out there, I forget the author, it's called A Failure of Nerve. And it talks about what leadership looks like. And leadership is really about carving out what you stand for and separating yourself, not from people, right, but from visions that don't necessarily match up, and then leaning into that. And I think that's a lot of what you're beginning to see with Brooklyn Park is a city that, I hesitate to say this because you try to be humble, but under my particular brand of leadership, right, is saying we're going to go in a different direction than what we see with other cities. We're going to lean into public safety, we're going to lean into families, we're going to lean into economic prosperity, and it's difficult to go in that direction. And I think that's what the country needs more of, though, is a leadership that says there's a vision out there and we're going to move in that direction and execute that vision. Well,
what you've said, we just want to pray that everything is going to come to fulfillment, and when the next year comes, we'll be able to see your, and you got the best advocate you could possibly have, and our team is going to make sure that we push it around and let people know your vision and get to know you, because people will not work for people unless they know you, like them, trust them. So I hope this particular interview had created that platform for you and for others to get to know who you are, to trust who you are, and also to trust your vision that you have for our city.
Well, thank you, and thank you again for having me on the show. I very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's an honor.
We got you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.